So good afternoon, everyone. For those of you I haven't met, my name is David Carter, and I head up Sapphire's engineering excellence function. And I really just couldn't be more excited to be welcoming you all to our second annual Hypergrowth Engineering Summit. The summit is really a community-focused event where we aim to bring together technical practitioners and senior decision makers from some of the most innovative companies on the planet into one room to kind of discuss best practices and really learn from one another and network with one another. And so on behalf of the entire Sapphire team, I first just wanted to thank you all for coming out today, for taking time out of your schedules. I know some folks have traversed oceans and continents to be here, and we really, really appreciate it and just welcome you all. We've got a really great session and lineup of speakers in store for you, and so just excited to have you with us. The first thing I wanted to share is just some data about the folks that are actually in this room. And when I look at this NASCAR slide up here, it's really just kind of humbling, quite frankly, just the quality of the companies that we've been able to amass in under one roof. We have over 140 unique companies in attendance today, 125 of which are VC-backed startups representing over $20 billion in funding. And we have another 15 enterprises representing over $6 trillion in funding. And about 80% of the audience here today is somebody who is a sort of a technical leader, so VPE, CTO, product leaders as well as CPO. So just a really, really high quality audience. And again, representative of sort of some of the most innovative companies around. And so we're super excited, happy to have you here. And look, the plan for today is to have fun, right? And so we're gonna break bread, we're gonna have some drinks, we're gonna have some whiskey, we're gonna get to know one another, we're gonna network. We're gonna hear from some amazing speakers. And before we do that, I'm just gonna talk through some of the key themes for this year's summit, and specifically why we think they're relevant in 2023. And so look, it wouldn't be a tech summit in 2023 if we didn't talk about Gen AI, right? And I think it's pretty obvious. It's really dominating the headlines these days. Everybody's sort of, it really feels like one of these sort of watershed moments, which I know is said often, but I think it's really true, where these innovations that are coming out of the AI ecosystem are really bringing us to the point where we're really sort of truly operationalizing ML in a way that we never have before. And in response, we've seen this sort of wave of new innovative companies come to market across the sort of foundational LLM layer all the way to sort of the middleware MLOps layer, and then at the top, the BizApps layer. And this slide, it's a little bit self-evident, but it just sort of speaks to some of the focus and interest in companies that are building Gen AI products that are coming to market. Lots of excitement here, lots of new entrants, and sort of the VC dollars are following suit. And this is a space that, again, we continue to track really closely. However, Gen AI is really surfacing against this backdrop of, this is a little bit doom and gloom, so I apologize, but it's really surfacing against this backdrop of some continued market uncertainty, right? We've got valuations are continuing to sort of decline. Unfortunately, there's still layoffs that are occurring. The IPO markets have essentially been frozen for the last year or so. And so there's a lot of sort of headwinds right now that folks are facing. This is a little bit tongue in cheek, but we honestly considered changing the name of the summit this year to really align more with what we've been sort of evangelizing, sort of espousing to our portfolio companies, which is more about sustainable growth, resilient growth, getting more efficient, and things along those lines. And so look, you as engineering leaders, this has a direct impact on you. And I think the bottom line here is you're really faced with this sort of challenging environment where you're trying to build new features, stay ahead of the backlog, build new products, but at the same time, striking this delicate balance of sort of continuity of operations, keeping the lights on, driving down costs, but also ensuring team morale and ensuring sort of overall sort of developer satisfaction and things along those lines. So, these headwinds, again, it's producing this top-down focus on efficiency, and R&D efficiency in particular has become sort of a board-level conversation. And it makes sense if you think about it, right? If 30 to 40% of your total OpEx spend is on R&D, or 30 to 40% of your total headcount is R&D, it's an obvious place for management to look to try to find some opportunities for efficiencies and to sort of cut costs and sort of drive more value. And so what we're seeing in turn is people turn to some of these frameworks up here, like Dora and Space, and the recently sort of published paper around DevX, to sort of build some structure around the types of metrics that we want to collect, the things that are important in understanding. And there's new tools that are coming to market, companies like Jellyfish. I think Andrew, the CEO of Jellyfish, is here somewhere, but he's going to be giving a talk later on a panel that are helping companies sort of along this journey and really adopting some of these key metrics and having a more programmatic way of measuring them. I think a couple trends we're seeing. One is that there is no silver bullet here. Like, I think all the boards out there are looking for like this one kind of magic number type metric that they can hang their hat on to say like, is my team efficient or not? Let's look at this one particular data point. And I think what the sort of community is coming to realize and gaining sort of clarity around is that it's really more of an amalgamation of these things. It's several data points. It's about knowing where to look, having sort of a conversation starter, the places that might need more attention and that sort of thing. And that's what a lot of these frameworks aim to sort of surface. The other thing is that there's been a lot of research and attention paid towards the qualitative aspects of efficiency. And so in particular, developer satisfaction has been proven to have this very positive correlation to efficiency. And so one of the ways that we're seeing people try to directly invest into developer satisfaction, it's a little bit of sort of a challenging thing to put on the page and say like, here's like sort of a very explicit thing we're doing. But one of them is platform engineering. And everybody I think knows what it is, but it's this idea of, can we build sort of a best-in-class developer experience? Can we add a standard tool chain? Can we automate sort of steps that would have historically been sort of a broken process? Can we give people reusable components, reusable libraries, et cetera, to make them more effective and ultimately stay in that sort of flow state? The interesting thing, again, I'm going to keep pointing back to this, is this idea about the current economy. And I think at times it can be difficult to justify to management this investment in platform engineering, right? It's not a new feature you're releasing that's going to sell more widgets. It's not some bug that's causing customer churn. This is really sort of purely a back of the house play, and it's intended to make engineers more efficient, but at least up front it can be difficult to sort of measure and sort of demonstrate the ROI. And so we actually have a panel, again in 45 minutes or so, where we're going to hear from some experts around sort of platform engineering, why it's important, why developer experience is important, and how to sort of make this justification to the board on why this is a thing that folks should be paying attention to. And I think, speaking of developer experience, this is one of the areas that we believe is actually that AI is going to impact the most in the near term. This is one of the most sort of tangible, real-world use cases that we see these Gen AI products that are coming online and just the overall sort of proliferation of ML tools coming to market impacting. And it's this notion of this sort of massive shift that's happening really right before our eyes on this trend towards autonomous DevOps. And the idea is that we will be able to build and deploy and fully operate applications with little to, in parentheses because we're not really there yet, or to no human intervention. And I love this quote at the bottom of the page from Andres, which it talks about English being sort of the hottest programming language. He says it kind of tongue-in-cheek, but it's true in a way, and I think it'll become more true. And it's this idea that, one, the generative coding platforms are making sort of switching between the languages much more seamless for folks that don't have experience with one particular stack versus the other. And two, again, that we're really shifting towards more of this design-first, sort of intent-first based approach to software development. And the generative AI tools and sort of like a natural language interface of which to do that is really becoming more prevalent. But it's not just about Gen AI. Like Copilot, we've got some of the team here. I think that steals a lot of the sort of attention in the headlines, but it's really every single phase of the SDLC is being in some way powered and disrupted by machine learning. And this is a landscape we put together that some of the investment team helped me with, which really just shows all of the sort of breadth of generative coding tools, test analytics tools. One of our portfolio companies, Circle CI, bought a company called Ponycode, which is one of the leaders in test generation. There's synthetic test generation. There's auto documentation. There's AI ops. There's continuous verification platforms. So really, like every single aspect of the software engineer's experience, their responsibility, their role, what they do, is in some way being disrupted or automated by machine learning. And we believe that the rise of this, this idea of like the 100x or the 1000x developer is really well underway. And we're going to have, I mentioned, but we're going to have Eddie from the GitHub Next team, who's been sort of a key ingredient to them building and sort of releasing Copilot. He's going to come and give a talk in a couple hours about some of the implications that these tools are having on software engineering in general, and particularly what it'll even mean to be a software engineer 5-10 years from now. So Gen AI, it's unlocking all this potential for developers, but it also presents this new set of challenges, right? And so, look, virtually every SaaS company on the market is building Gen AI, right? They're trying to embed it into their product. If they're not doing it now, they're having board meetings where they're talking about what they can be doing. And it makes a ton of sense, right? There's a bit of protectionism happening here, but it's also overall, fueled by this desire to innovate and to kind of leverage these tools. I think the challenge is, again, going back to the sort of state of things and efficient growth, it's coming up against this backdrop of this more conservative economic climate. And so what this means is that while it's this interesting sort of beneficial thing in some regards to the engineering community, it's also this challenge. And these product roadmaps are now evolving on the fly, and they're just being sort of put at your doorstep to go and figure out how you're going to solve and execute on these things. And you're being asked to do so essentially with fewer resources at your disposal. And it's like every day there's a new LLM that gets, a new open source LLM that gets launched. There's a new approach to prompt tuning or language chaining. A lot of these paradigms, it's not even just like that they're new. It's new within the last few months even. So to go out to market and to find really talented people to come in and help you sort of navigate the stuff as it's happening is pretty challenging. There just aren't that many resources available. And again, going back to resilient growth, it's not as if you're going to go out, even if you could find them, and hire like 30 machine learning experts to come in and figure this stuff out for you. And so I make this point to say what we think is happening and what we've sort of seen happening to this point and will continue to happen is that ultimately a lot of this is going to fall at the feet of traditional software engineers, and they will increasingly be more and more involved in the sort of end-to-end MLOps workflow. And it'll become less of the responsibility of just sort of a centralized, sort of highly specialized data science team. And we have a panel coming up to talk about this and sort of the evolution of this workflow and the ways that Gen AI is really impacting MLOps overall. So those are some of the key themes we think are really shaping the landscape, and overall we remain sort of incredibly optimistic. I know there was some doom and gloom that I weaved in there, but overall we're incredibly optimistic about the space and the way that's evolving. We think these innovations in AI and DevOps are really sort of paving the way to define this new set of engineering playbooks that we always talk about. And that really, not to get corny on you, but that really starts with community and really the folks in this room sort of building connections with one another, sharing best practices, sharing knowledge, developing those reference architectures, those sorts of things. And just a quick aside, Sapphire, we really believe in this notion. We've been sort of cultivating these communities for years. We maintain these robust practitioner communities that are sort of persona-driven. So we have a people and talent community, a finance community, a revenue excellence community. We actually just relaunched this community's platform, which is really sort of a formulation of work that we've been doing over the years around sort of building and cultivating these networks. Today, obviously, is all about our Eng community, which is really represented by many of the folks in this room today. And in addition to communities, one of the ways we decided we wanted to give back was to establish our engineering excellence platform. And so, this is a dedicated function that we offer out to this ecosystem essentially, and aims to give back things like content and thought leadership, strategy guidance, partner connectivity to advisors, things along those lines, and of course, peer learnings as well, which brings us full circle. So wrapping up here, I think, we're just beyond excited to be kicking this off. So it's super, we're just super thrilled to have you all with us. I think this slide speaks for itself, but suffice it to say, we have this really world-class speaker lineup in store for you today. There's some folks on the page here, but more kind of on deck waiting to get on stage. Truly humbled to be joined by just, again, such an amazing cohort of technology leaders. I want to give a quick shout out to our two sponsors, so our gold sponsors, Persistent Systems, who are one of the fastest growing digital engineering and enterprise modernization service providers in the world, and AWS. Everybody knows what AWS is. They're the #1 cloud provider on the planet. And then quick shout out to our sponsor in kind, Artisanal, boutique executive search provider, and just dear partner to our Sapphire talent team. So last slide here, I'm almost done. Just some logistics, the flow of the day. We've got about an hour of talks coming up, followed by a 20-minute break. Then we have another hour and a half of sessions, followed by a 30-minute break where we'll bring out some snacks and some refreshments. And then we'll be closing with another final hour of sessions and a keynote. And then we cap the day with a rooftop reception in this building, just a few flights up, where we'll have a whiskey tasting and a cocktail hour and things like that from 5 to 7. So we hope you'll stick around for that. It should be fun. And the last thing I'll say is, we want to encourage you all to get to know one another. So please make some new connections. Tap the person next to you on the shoulder, say hello, and most importantly, have fun.